Worked on that because it's pretty close to your vocal cords.
Okay, it's 7:02. So if I do anything wrong, just tell me, just correct me. Okay?
That was wrong.
That was wrong. I know it is. Right? 7:03 now. So we'll go ahead and call the planning commission to order. Well, looks like I'm doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Clark is doing opening ceremony, and then Haley will do a roll call. Who wants to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as I give the opening, we have, in our city, we have a lot of different beliefs, and people go to different churches and different, have different traditions. And I think it's very appropriate that when we come together, we give thanks and ask for a little guidance. So if you'll join me in prayer. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before Thee this time at the opening of this city meeting. We give thanks for our many blessings. We give thanks that we live in this wonderful country and that we enjoy the freedoms we have and the abundance we have here. We give thanks for our community. We pray for a blessing on our community and those in it. Bless us tonight as we discuss options that we will be able to understand the issues and come to some good conclusions on how to manage those. We pray for those in our community and in our county that are struggling. There's many that struggle with needs. We pray for them. We pray that Thou bless us that we'll know how to help them. We pray for these things now in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Present. Commissioner Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Heidi Murdoch.
Here.
Commissioner Justin Wright.
Here.
Chairperson Kevin Polson is absent. Council member Gary Anderson.
Here.
Okay. We'll move on to the public comment section. Anybody wants to, if you want to, I know we've talked about pools.
Yeah, and what's on the agenda too, right? We just have one of the public comment section.
Yeah, so it's during the pool.
We do it during the pool, yeah.
Okay, we can do that. So we don't have anybody for public comment. So we will move on to the swearing-in ceremony. New Commissioner Shelley Bauer.
So I state your name.
Shelley Bodley.
Pledge to uphold and defend
Pledge to uphold and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
along with laws of the state of Utah
along with the laws of the state of Utah
and the policies of Fruit Heights City.
and the policies of Fruit Heights City.
As a planning commission member of Fruit Heights City,
As a planning commission member of Fruit Heights,
I commit to carry out my duties
I commit to carry out my duties
with integrity and impartiality
with integrity and impartiality
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Shelley. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we will move on to review and approve of planning commission minutes from July 30th. Any thoughts, comments on those minutes? Anybody? I read through them, I didn't have any comments. They looked fine to me.
I
Anybody?
didn't have a chance to read them in detail, but
Okay.
I'm good with them.
Anybody would be looking for a motion then to approve, followed by I a second?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting from July 30th, 2020.
Second,
I will second that.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting minutes are approved. We'll move on to business. So 5.1 is the pool ordinance. My recollection and reviewing the meeting from last time, we discussed with Tyler. Tyler basically brought before the commission and asked the commission to look at changing the ordinance to allow for a 3-foot setback. So I think the request from the commission was to look at other cities and kind of see what other cities are doing and then have that discussion.
I can start that and try to get this microphone. There we go. So, I did some research after our last meeting, probably 15 different cities along the Wasatch Front, even some down in southern Utah. For the most part, I'd say the overwhelming majority of those cities have either a 5-foot setback or slightly more than that. There's a few of them that are upwards of 10-foot setbacks from the property line to a swimming pool, but 5 feet is the overwhelming majority. I also spent some time, and that shouldn't surprise anybody, I think we already knew that. I also spent some time, and what I really wanted to know was that, where does that come from? What is the reason behind the 5-foot versus 10-foot versus whatever? And I talked to a number of people that have been in the business for decades. And I didn't talk to a single individual that could give me a definitive answer about why the code says what it says. A lot of city planners say that this has existed in our code way before our time. These kinds of things don't come up very often. This isn't a controversial area of planning or city government, that pools don't create a lot of controversy. So I don't think that should surprise anybody either. The fact that it just kind of is what it is, and there's not a lot of history behind it. You take chickens, on the other hand, and you could write volumes or find volumes that have been written about chickens, but not pools. So, and I know Tyler's done some research. I think his stuff pretty much parallels what I'm saying. Darren's done some research. I think Darren and I have talked about it. I think we essentially are agreed that that's what it is. The city used to be 5 feet. We went to 10 feet. We're currently at 8 feet. I did a little bit of national research and found some information that 5 feet seems to be kind of a standard across the country. So we're not far off from where everybody's at, whether we're at 5 feet or 8 feet. I don't know how much difference that makes. I don't think I found a smoking gun, which helps Tyler's case to say this should be a smaller or larger setback. I don't think we're going to find anything. I think it's what is the city comfortable with, and what do most of the residents need in order to, have pools. I think the best argument, in my mind, for decreasing the setback is that we're building on smaller lots. That's definitely a direction that all cities are going. And if you have smaller properties, you're going to probably have, and you want to put in a pool, you're probably going to have conflicts with setbacks. So I would expect that in the future, we may have more discussions about this as other people come in and they're having a problem fitting a pool that they want on a lot. But I think that's really the best argument for saying we should decrease it. I don't know how many people have built pools in the last 5 years in the city, but that's just kind of where we're at. It's how do you feel? I don't particularly have something one way or the other on that. I don't have a strong opinion about it, but I think it being in that 5 foot realm is right in the sweet spot of where most everybody's at. All of the big cities are close to that 5 feet. I found a couple of people that are at 4 feet. I didn't find anybody less than that. And there's a few at 10 feet. And I'd say the sweet spot on most ordinances will say that a distance to a neighboring dwelling is 20 feet. So that seems to be a standard, and that's right where we're at now. That's where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I found out. So there's just not anything there that is, I think, terribly helpful.
If the land next door develops and somebody wants to put something using the 10-foot side setback from the side, how does that affect? Can they still build there?
You
Even
mean
though
if
it's,
the home comes later?
yes,
The pool's in and the home comes later. So and I think in our ordinance it says that if it's a vacant lot, you have to be 30 feet, right? I'd have to go back and look at that. Can we look at, if it's, you're saying if there's a vacant lot next door, how close can the pool be to the vacant lot?
well, that piece of property next to Tyler someday somebody may buy that and build more than one.
It's occupied now.
What's that?
It's occupied.
Yes, it's occupied now.
Subdivided from our territory.
Are you talking about his issue, or are you just talking in general?
Well, his issue, but that can go to anyone. You know, if we say it's gotta be 20 feet from a dwelling, and we go 5 feet, that means the side yard for the house that goes in next door, if that happened to me, and somebody bought the lot behind me and wanted to build.
Well, in that case, though, what you're talking, Clark, I believe that if the pool's already there, before that land is subdivided or whatever, that pool didn't meet the ordinance at that time. Not being
Is,
off the property line.
Yeah,
the house isn't out of compliance if it goes there.
it doesn't render, if it's an approved building lot, nothing that the neighbor does renders that lot unbuildable. It's
Okay.
still a buildable lot.
That answers.
And I think what Darren's saying is that even though now the pool may not be in compliance, it was in compliance. But did you find what it says? There's something about a setback on a vacant lot. I can't remember.
I couldn't find it. I've got it pulled up. I don't.
You got it pulled up, it doesn't say.
I don't see it, no.
There was a lot of ordinances, I've read so many ordinances about this. There was a lot of ordinance that said something about a separate setback. It might have been like 15 feet. 15 feet. It's 5 feet to a property line, but it's 15 feet if it's a vacant property. I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at that again, but I think the answer to your question is that no placing of a pool or any other accessory structure on the property impacts a vacant, approved vacant lot.
Right, so,
They can still build on their house.
Other house.
Or build a house on their own.
yes,
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't affect
No,
the neighbors.
no.
Okay.
So my thought, I just, so a couple thoughts. I think I shared this last time, but you know, I grew up in a home, not here, but that had a swimming pool in the backyard. It was probably 3 feet. There was a diving board, and literally you couldn't walk around the diving board. It was that tight. You had to walk over it to get, you know, because of the fence. And there was a goalie behind. We didn't have issues with, you know, that wall coming down or pressure or anything. I think if it's built right, it's fine. Somebody brought up last time we discussed about, you know, what about potential noise? And somebody commented, well, there's nothing that keeps you from building a basketball hoop, you know, basketball court right up to the property line. I don't know that a swimming pool would be any noisier potentially or a disturbance to your neighbors than a basketball court, right? To me, I don't have a problem with it. Reducing, you know, from the current 8 feet to, you know, 3 or 5. I think it's your property and you should be able to do what you can with it. I think if you're gonna be a good neighbor, you're gonna be a good neighbor with or without the pool there.
Not that my research is thorough, but I looked up, after we talked last time, I looked up pool construction, and there are different types of pool constructions. And if you do have to have a form on the outside, that's gonna get you pretty close to the fence line if you're at 3 feet. But there's other ways to build pools. They gunite a lot of pools in, and which is very strong. And with that, you spray the gunite against the dugout wall. And there's other synthetic pools that they put in. So I think there are pool installers that can do that safely and not compromise the fence line. So I'm kind of with you. I think when we jumped to 10 feet, I don't know why we did that. But, you know, we are going to have smaller lots. And people are going to want pools. So I think maybe we should look at it being less than 8.
Do we have consistent PUEs on all these properties up here? Public utility easements on just 3 feet?
Probably not on like your backyard, just your front, like along the street, most of them.
Most of them.
Yes.
Yeah, most of them need to go.
So someone wouldn't be able to do that.
Right,
I
so
mean,
there's a
if they
public
had
utility
touch on that, yeah.
So that's 5 feet on my.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to build a pool in public utilities. That's
So,
that's a recipe for trouble.
right, so that's gonna be dependent upon the lot and where your public utility easement lays, is that right? I'm assuming you're wanting.
How close can the shed be to the fence? Is it 3 feet?
If it's- if it's at
the
least
east of
6
that, it can be no closer than 3 feet.
If it's at least 6 feet behind your house, it can be 3
And
feet.
then,
Because the E can't be closer than 3 feet from the
Okay.
property.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable going to 5, but probably not less than 5, just having built a pool recently. 3 would have been a little sketch, but I am on the hillside also, but I think 5 is reasonable. And a lot of people are building skinny pools, like there's a ton in St. George that build skinny pools, people up in all these small lots, I've seen them. My pool guy was showing me tons of pictures of, they'll fit him in there. But his was still a small lot in Draper, and it has to be 5 feet off, and it's 10 or 12 feet wide, and he builds pools, that's his, he said, it's fine, like we do it all the time now, because of lot sizes. So, I don't know, that's my thought.
I think looking at the our zoning map, right? If we got the new neighborhoods are all R110, R18. Yeah, the new neighborhoods, I think even in R112, some R112, based on the shape of the lot, have difficulty putting in a pool with the current regulation where it's at. So if we want to allow pools, we probably need to make some sort of change.
Well, Jeff, if you could find a way to get us credit on the affordable housing by allowing pools in smaller lots, that would be good.
Yeah, yeah, I'm afraid that's not the case.
That's not.
Yeah,
Mermaid housing.
There we go.
So I guess at this point, any future discussion or any other thoughts on rezoning the setback for swimming pools?
On the code, I'm just looking, I'm assuming you're correct, it says it shall be no closer than 7 feet from the top of the slope.
So that's a different. part.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, if we change it to 5, this would not,
That would not change,
Yes.
that would still be
Yes,
part of
okay.
that.
But it's just section B calls out the 8 feet.
So I think we're all in agreement we can reduce it. But whether we reduce it to 3 or whether we reduce it to 5, I think that's what do we do with that?
Yeah.
I vote 3.
Just my history, I guess, I wouldn't have a problem with 3. Just from where I've lived and what I've seen, but.
That's like the city council, right?
It does go to city council.
I mean, what are your
We make
thoughts
a
as city
recommendation.
council would say?
Well, I can't speak
guess
for
what's
the
your
entire
thought
city
process?
council.
But you are one.
Yeah,
My personal thoughts is I think that at times you get along perfectly with your neighbors, and sometimes just having a little bit of space between you helps just grease the skid, so to speak. And so 5 feet seems, I mean, I don't have a problem bringing it down. 5 feet seems pretty reasonable to me. I could be convinced to go to 3, but I don't know what the discussion has been between yourself, Tyler, and the planning commission. So I don't know what that's about, but I don't know. That's my just very, very basic thought. I could easily go with 5, but I don't know if that was helpful. But,
I don't know, yeah, yours is my basic sense would help here, but
and let's just talk after,
that's fine.
because I don't have a vote here. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
My opinion. Yeah, my opinion right here doesn't matter.
Unless-
It might matter, depending on what happens here, it might matter in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we can talk, so, yeah.
So, let me explain how the process has got to work once again. This is a change to the ordinance, which would require a public hearing. We have to do all the proper advertising, go through that whole process. Once the planning commission goes through the process, they would make a recommendation to the city council just like the last time where it was moved to 8 feet, they make that recommendation. This is where, and then the city council is the final vote on that. And the city council can come back, say, no, we'll leave it at 8. They can come back and say, yes, we'll go by the recommendation. Planning commission, move it to 5 or move it to whatever. But once again, there has to be a public hearing because we're changing the ordinance.
and I would recommend that in this case, before you go through public hearing and do all of that, write an ordinance and all of that, that you make a motion, if you're inclined to change it, make a motion send a recommendation to the city council and see if the city council will take a straw poll, look at it, and before you go to the trouble, because they're the final recommending body, and if they're not gonna support that, there's no reason to go through all the ordinance rewrite. That's just a lot of work for nothing. It's pretty cut and dry. Either you change it or you don't. There's not a ton of discussion that needs to be had, so I'd send a recommendation up there to see if you can get I mean, it's not official, it won't be official, but you could probably get a pretty good feeling about whether or not they would consider this.
Help us remember, how do they start the process for the public hearing, or do we?
No,
So the public hearing is just in the planning commission.
just at the planning commission.
So if they send back and say, yeah, we're in favor of so many centimeters, then we would say, okay, let's have a public hearing on this.
Yeah, and then we could write the ordinance up and make the language changes and propose them and have to do all that. I just don't know if it's worth going through all that if they're not gonna support it.
I totally agree with Jeff. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of time to write it up if the city council's not gonna support it. And I can't speak. I don't know how they would feel. We'd have to see.
Why did it ever go 5, 10, 8?
I was gonna ask that same question. Why was it?
And so we had 5 feet, and there was a lot of residents that came into the city council with complaints about the poles being so close to the property line. So the
Noise complaints, right?
noise complaints, water splashing and running on properties, just a lot of different complaints. At that time, the city council recommended the staff to go back and come up with a number. The staff came back and we came back with 8 feet at that time. We really thought that would be a really good compromise from where it was at that point. The city council had some very good discussion. It was pretty long, if I remember right, Gary. The discussion went back and forth, and the council finally came back, and their recommendation was 10 feet. So that's why the ordinance went to 10 feet. And then, just a few months ago, it's kind of the same thing that Tyler has. There was a few individuals who saying, we just can't get anything to fit on our lots. We can shrink our pool and we can do this, but can we have another couple feet? Once again, came to the planning commission, they had a public hearing, they discussed it. And I will tell you, it went between 5 and 8 feet back and forth. And the planning commission came back with a recommendation of 8 feet to the city council. The city council accepted the planning commission's recommendation, brought it to 8 feet.
See, some things don't change.
So at this time, then I guess we'd be looking for a motion to send a recommendation to the city council. Is that correct?
So you want to make a motion to have the staff go to the city council with a discussion item to talk about pool setbacks and put a distance in there for us that we can go back to the council and just take a discussion on that and see if the council's willing to look at it.
I think he's trying to tell you need to pick a distance.
Yeah, for sure. So does
We
anyone
can't pick two
make,
distances?
What's that?
We can't pick two distances?
Pick 2, that's fine, and that's what I will take to the city
And give a
council
range.
in our discussion.
Oh.
I can say that they're debating between these 2, they want to know if there's any support from the city council. If there's support from the city council, they would probably inform you to begin the process with changing the ordinance and rewriting it, getting a public hearing together, and bring it back to the planning commission.
Does anybody want to make a motion to send that recommendation to the city council to see if there's support in favor of adjusting the setback for the pool, for pools, the ordinance for pools?
I will make that motion to send to the city council was it a recommendation or a
recommendation.
recommendation that we reconsider the offset for the pools somewhere in the 3 to 5 feet range,
The setback.
the setback, and see where they fall on it. And if they fall at 8 feet, then it's 8 feet. But with our discussion, I think we would include in the discussion, we have smaller building lots. Backyards aren't as big as they used to be.
A second,
I'll second it.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I mean, we're not approving anything, we're just saying.
No.
Yeah.
You're asking me to go to the.
Yeah,
city
my
council
God.
to see what the amount.
We're just passing the buck.
We are.
We're just asking mom and dad. That's all we're doing.
But it does make sense because,
Is everybody in support of 3 feet or 5 feet? If I were to give I would say 5 feet is.
I would say like.
I think 3 feet is too close just in general construction of anything
Yeah.
within,
That was
within
my,
5 feet of a property line, right?
that was the
Yeah,
conversation I had.
yeah, I would say sort of 5 feet.
Just take a straw poll, you get 2 to 5.
I was comfortable at 3, but
I wouldn't mind three.
so
2 to 5.
so 3 does not scare me a lot. I think the 2 feet, it's not gonna make a difference on noise.
So we can just simply just say that planning commission is kind of split on the idea, 3 or 5.
And then see what they say.
I think that's fine, because I don't want to waste everybody's time if they say, we're not gonna go down that road.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it makes me hesitate a little knowing that community members complained at 5 feet and came and said, we're having water issues, which you have. I mean, those are all real concerns, and then saying, well, just kidding, we really don't care about your input, we're changing it back. I don't want people to feel like they're
So-
being messed around with,
So
but,
maybe just a little bit of history there, that.
Yeah, I don't know.
The original one was quite some time ago.
okay, I don't know.
About 3.5 years ago.
It was, are you sure it was that close?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, because we brought up the other one during that discussion.
all right. I remember it being longer.
So it's not like I don't know.
Moving to
what
10
the-
feet was 3.5 years ago?
I don't know if there was hundreds of people here, or it was like 3 people, and they,
There weren't hundreds, there were not hundreds.
No, there were hundreds, there were just.
it wasn't like chickens.
There were what?
No, it was not like chickens.
It sounded like hundreds of people.
Yes, so that's why I don't know, like,
Well, I'm not talking about the one that was, 6 months ago or whatever.
No, the other one was, we had it on there, so.
So the one that was a problem,
2022,
that was grandfathered though, right?
what's that?
The one that was a problem is grandfathered. It's in the ground, right?
Yeah, so if you're complaining, if you come in complaining about
One that's
water
already-
splashing on your property, I think it would change.
That was gonna change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
This was all about new ones that were proposed to go in and problems that they were having.
Heidi is a pool owner. If somebody's complaining about water, are they talking about splashing water or something else?
no, this grade, like, there's a ton, 20 teenagers, which is regular in a pool, like a ton of water's coming off the back. So a lot of people now, like, I have a drain on each side, so
So
everything's
is there-
soaked and goes in the drain away. But if you don't have that, it could run into your neighbor's grass or flower bed or whatever, but, so I don't,
But there were not hundreds of people here about the
No, no, no.
pool thing. They were here about the chicken thing.
The chicken thing had.
Right, but that was, it was the same meeting, but it was not, there were not like
Actually,
hundreds of
the-
people up in arms about pools.
The pool was actually, when we changed it to 10 feet, was like 2022. When we went back to 8 feet, was at the same time with the chickens.
It It's
Right,
safe, it's
right.
safe.
But I meant back in 2022, there were not very many people here talking about pools at all.
Yeah, there was only probably 4 or 5 people that came to that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There were only like
Yeah.
4 or 5 people here.
So would it
max.
be
And some of them probably were just coming because
their neighbors were like,
Yeah.
well, they weren't even here for that. They were just, because sometimes they come just to be informed and be a part of the process.
Yeah.
So the original one that went from 5 to 10, and it might have even been just updating some type of ordinances, because I don't remember it being a big deal. I don't remember it being,
It was just a good discussion between the council members at the time. And
Yeah.
it was all the council members.
yeah, I don't
And that's
remember.
where it finally came to us, the 10th.
I just don't remember it being like a major point of contention.
It's just safe to say that the city is not up in arms over pools.
oh yeah, send that and see.
Okay.
I still need a second on that motion.
Oh, I seconded it.
And we voted.
Okay, so we'll move on to the notorious chicken ordinance.
And did that get info from the city council? Was the plan to have them see if we sent something, if they were
So,
ready to sign something?
I was just asked by the planning commission to, see where some of the city councilmen were on for having a fee associated with it. And making it a conditional use. It was probably 50-50 on the council member as well, about charging it. So it just kind of went back and forth. I never did get. I will tell you, the mayor does not like it, but he doesn't have a vote, and I believe.
What is it he doesn't like, the fee?
Aren't we talking about like $10, like
The
literally?
mayor does not like
um,
charging a fee for, the chickens, because when we had that group of individuals here, they were up in arms when we said, hey, it may cost you $5 to have chickens, so you understand this. The council members were more, yes on that I asked. They could see a benefit for it. And that's kind of where we went. I think they said Kevin a couple things about that, and actually I know the mayor had a discussion with Kevin after I talked to the mayor.
But the point is just to be able to control the situation, right? I mean,
It is- the point is to control.
someone's abusing it, it stops it, because if not, you have zero way to enforce abuse of the ordinance, correct? I mean,
Well, we do currently have a way to enforce it, because currently you can only have chickens on certain size lot. And I think that the fact,
I will tell you that question I did ask, most of the council agree that the lot should have a minimum size. And most of them agree that there should be a limit to the number of chickens.
Did they say what that lot size minimum should be?
10,000.
10,000?
Nothing smaller than 10,000.
I don't know.
And I think that the planning commission was really close to that same thing as they talked. The 10,000.
I think we were there.
Yeah.
We were
The
there.
limit on the numbers.
And plus the limit on the numbers.
We didn't think there would be space on a smaller lot, the 4,000 or 6,000 square foot lot. However, today there in the new, Deseret News or in KSL, South Ogden and, one of the,
Washington Terrace.
Washington Terrace, yeah, they're both in the news about chickens.
This is the second time.
And one of them allowed 2 chickens on a, like 6,000 square foot lot, which, and that really made me stop and think, why would you do that? Why would somebody want 2 chickens? That's 2 eggs a day. Probably not worth the hassle, but it's probably sending a message, hey, we're including you. So I don't know whether that's worth considering or not. I'm still kind of a,
What was the other news article?
Is it missing it? What was it? Did you read it?
You said there's two.
well, it was two in the same article. It was Washington Terrace and South Ogden.
Okay.
Washington Terrace, I don't think it's passed it yet.
They were considering adopting a chicken ordinance?
Yeah, and they probably will.
Both of them are, they've had some really heated
So are
exchanges.
we looking like now to say like, we're making a recommendation to the city council for the ordinance? Is that what we're wanting to do right now?
So what I would like from the planning commission, is what we want to send to the city council. Is that we want to have a fee associated with the conditional use. We want this many, chickens allowed on this size of lot. Is there a small size of lot? Once that recommendation comes from the planning commission, I can put that together and then bring it back to the planning commission for that final review to send to the city council. So we've had public hearings on this. We don't have to go back and have another public hearing, but we do need to be able to
Put it in ordinance.
in an ordinance form from the planning commission to go to the city council.
So my recollection is that, an individual requested that the city look at a chicken ordinance. When we had the public hearing, it was packed in here. My recollection is that those that spoke were basically saying, don't take away my chickens.
Yes.
But there are honeybees.
Don't take away-
Everyone that spoke was allowed them, and it
There's
doesn't,
people that have
it
chickens.
doesn't
Legal.
affect them.
So that's my point.
Yeah, it doesn't affect
They
So
could
that's
all
my
keep their
point,
chickens.
right? So those,
Well, I will tell you, there were a few of them that are in our one ten zone that had chickens.
Illegally.
And so I think that's part of it is, bringing it into that zone
Is-
where our one ten can have chickens instead of just your, RS 12.
Is this one on May eighth, the most recent updated ordinance that we had, when we took out all
I don't think we actually changed
That
it.
probably is the last one that I
the,
said.
May eighth was the last, I'm just trying to.
Oh, the last draft.
Yes.
Sorry, yes.
Pretty sure the last one said 8,000 square feet.
This one says 10,000, so I'm looking at, I'm just gonna show you that, I'm seeing a lot less than 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
One laying hen for every 1,000 square feet of the property.
Okay.
Any roosters shall be properly removed within 5 months of age. During the culling of old chickens, they're maybe up to 1.5 times the normal amount of chickens, because they say it takes 10.
So in other words, if you have some that are gonna be
Dying, you
Dying.
can have other ones to get
replenished,
ready to take their
right,
place.
yep.
I think the majority of people that have chickens in the city have them legally. I think, again, it's a small minority that doesn't have access to chickens.
Has the city been contacted by individuals asking, can I have chickens?
I thought the mayor had, is that what came up as the mayor had?
Yeah, there's some residents in the mayor's neighborhood
Oh, that,
that
one
have
of them.
chickens, that have chickens illegally because they're zoned just R110.
So his idea is, why not just make it legal and then they're not out of compliance?
I think the new one that is updated, because that's after all the crazy stuff got taken out.
Pretty close, yes.
This one seems like I would approve this one, like I don't know if you're, but it looks,
I don't know.
that it's all the buried wire stuff is taken out and all
I think,
that.
did this one though state that we'd have like a fowl commission or something like that?
No,
There's one that I did try to take that out because that was a recommendation from the planning commission.
this
Yeah,
does not
so
call
I
for
would
a without committing.
I guess my biggest concern is we don't have a method to, make sure everyone's compliant currently. Why are we just adding more to the books, you know? That's my thought. If the commission feels like having a chicken ordinance is important, I can support it, but it seems, I just don't feel like it's an issue, that big of an issue.
Well, the targeted ordinance is just anyone under R112 is out of compliance currently, correct?
Yeah.
So if we don't do anything, anyone in R110.
Yeah.
I think I've got 4 neighbors that are out of compliance. And it is kind of hard to look at them and say, oh yeah, you're,
And
You're
they're out of
criminals.
compliance because of what, why?
They have chickens.
they're in 10,000.
They're in 10.
There are our own 10.
I could support 10,000 square feet, allow chickens. I don't know
And
This was like 1 per 1,000 square
if, when,
feet.
so on a 10,000 square foot lot, you get 10 chickens.
And then like if, but you could potentially have like 12 or 15. Is that the right, I'm not correct
We
now.
don't have time.
Like if some are dying and some are growing, you can have one, so you 15 on a 10,000.
Again, I think it just, how do you?
It sounds like a lot.
That is a crap. ton of
if they're all
chickens.
grown, then it's a lot.
Yeah. How do you make sure that it's during that culling period? And I think I would just say a straight, just give it a number. That's what I, just.
Well, I think that was added
Matter
because
too.
these people were,
Is how does the enforcement guy go out there and say, how old is this chicken?
Exactly.
Is it time for him to get out of the house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know.
I would say, are you in compliance or not? And they'll say yes. Okay.
I think just having a number is better.
it's 1 for every 1,000 square feet you own. Is that right? That's what it says.
So-
here.
That's what it says.
I think
but
that-
is that correct number? I don't know.
I think,
Okay, I'm even 10 on a 10,000 square foot. That is like,
That's a lot of chickens.
you're gonna have a handful on a little, like, a lot of chickens.
I do have to say, the neighbors that have chickens, we have neighbors with lots bigger than 12,000 square feet that have chickens. And I think in the back of their mind, they think, oh, my lot's bigger than 12,000, I ought to be able to have that too. So I like going to a number, 10's a lot, but I think it'll drive them nuts before it drives the neighbors nuts.
My neighbor has 5 chickens on a half acre. And I just,
Does it?
I have a coworker that lives downtown Salt Lake, and she was telling me just last week that her neighbor has chickens, and that she has a huge rat problem in her yard because of the neighbor's chickens.
Well, that's what he's saying, yeah, that's why I like the idea of the permit. I mean, it's not to charge people money, it's $5. It's more just to say, if you're not handling it properly, there's a way to
Yeah.
pull that conditional use. They can
and that's
still,
the argument for conditional use, because if
Yes.
they're not going to be responsible, you can just pull
yes,
it. And that is a huge concern. There isn't anybody that won't tell you that rats come with chickens. They just do.
and that's why I'm for doing
And-
something about the ordinance, is just to make it enforceable for people that aren't taking care of it, their neighbors have some way of like, you know, what do I do about this situation?
Would anybody be opposed to the conditional use option?
If it's a small fee, $5 are we talking about?
To pay for the right, for the hours
It's
it
more than
takes.
that. What's the
$10?
conditional use permit? And we can
We
establish a
can
special.
establish that fee schedule.
And it's more just to pay for the people at the city's work to process it and do it, it's really, no one's
Yeah,
making
exactly.
money off of it. And for the person, for me, it's that they see what they're signing and they know what they're agreeing to by having chickens, because it's not like having a dog or a cat or even a horse, I mean, it's
How often would they have to renew that?
Every year.
someone, is it a one-time
Is it
thing?
annually or could we do 3 years?
It can go more than a year, but it's probably not a bad idea to review it annually. Have somebody go out and look at it.
Darren, are you gonna have somebody go look at
You have
chickens?
you have a chicken watcher on your staff. I think neighbors are like, it's not control, the neighbor's gonna call,
You're right.
right?
If
Like,
there's a problem, you're gonna know.
if it's out of control, someone's gonna call the city. I think someone's gonna call the city, so I don't know if you need someone checking this. A neighbor will,
If I summarize, I think what I hear is that the commission's in agreement that lot size would be 10,000 square foot minimum.
one chicken per thousand.
I think that's the only thing we need to make sure we're still good, right? Because if we're
I think
talking,
that's what it's always,
are we okay with it? I would,
I mean, that's just a number that,
Ten's a lot of
can you
chickens
have
on
like
10,000
50,
square
can you have
feet.
like 50 chickens on the
It's-
half acre lots?
I think, yeah, it's quite a
isn't it 20,000 square foot lot, it's like 25 chickens.
25.
But
Some
that-
people are saying they have
you're-
50.
You're a half acre lot there, that's a lot bigger. I mean,
Well, that's a lot.
Less than a quarter acre lot.
You missed
10
it.
chickens on 10,000 square feet sounds like a lot.
Nobody did miss it.
I mean, 5 would probably be a lot more palatable.
Mhm.
So I think we're in agreement on 10,000 square foot minimum conditional use, at least sending this to the city council for review. I think now it's, do we limit, just put a hard number,
Yeah.
and what is that number? Is it 1 per 1,000 square feet? Is it 0.8 per 1,000 square feet? What's that right number?
So back on the conditional use, if, I think it would be an easier pill to swallow if it's more than 1 year.
I'm okay with
Coming
that.
in annually, and I think that's gonna burden the staff with a lot too.
I don't know if it will. I don't know
Well,
if they need
help me
to,
here.
it's just a one-time thing that you know you're signing and you've agreed to it, right?
This isn't meant to be punitive though, right?
No, I think it's more just,
So I can tell you how that would work as far as the
And so,
conditional use permit. We would run it through our business license, and it will keep track and generate an email or a letter each year.
So,
Hey, if you still have your chicken, you're still doing this, you're required to pay a $10 fee or whatever. Or we do that. I think we can set it up sometimes to do more use. Yeah, so we can set it up to do every other year.
So it's automated at that point.
What's that?
It's automated at that point.
Yeah, it's automated at that point. Once they fill out the license or the conditional use, then it's pretty much automated.
what are your thoughts on that as a council member?
I'm okay with 1 chicken per 1,000 after 10,000. Personally, I wouldn't charge a fee. I think that people will be,
What about the permit without a fee, or no? You don't like the idea of the conditional use?
I think that people will be upset, and I don't think it's worth the, the reality is, the city doesn't have a really good way of enforcing the code at the moment, and they'll have the same amount of power to enforce it regardless of whether you have a fee or not. So, to me,
But what about the permit, just to say, sign it and say, we know what we're agreeing to, and if we don't follow these things, we know that we could lose our ability to have them.
so I guess personally, I could support one that said you have to have like a signed thing with no fee, and you got it's a one-time thing, so that
Yeah.
in the event that you have some real bad character, that at least we have something that we can kind of go back and go, hey, you signed this, dude.
You would have city code, right, that would do that same thing.
You say no fee?
I personally
But then
don't.
we're.
Yeah, I say no fee.
There's a lot of administration in this. I think you need a fee.
that-
A lot of city
But
administration.
$5 is not going to cover it. And
I think it ought to be
And
at
my-
least what the business license is.
But my point is that,
$50.
that you're going to make people
hey,
pretty
hey,
upset over
Haley does
a
work with
chicken
this.
ordinance.
Is
So
it-
that's why I said, just have
I
no.
mean, it's no different than a home-based business.
Yeah, but my point is, that's exactly why I said, don't even have a, don't even have that, because $5, you're right, $5 isn't gonna cover it. There is some significant cost there, and you can see that it was pretty emotional to a lot of people. I think most of us were at that meeting. I was like, yeah, and it was funny because people were like, oh, is it for this? And I was like, oh no, that's for the chickens, like all of it. So, I don't know.
Haley works with business licenses. Can we just ask your opinion on the administration of that? What kind of burden are you thinking that would be?
It wouldn't be terrible. It would definitely be an increase if people actually fill it out, just keeping track of renewals and stuff.
But what if there's not a renewal? What if it's just almost like a signed, we know what we're agreeing to, we know if we don't follow these, we could lose the ability to have chickens, sign it, put it in the file in alphabetical order, and it's there. If anyone calls and complains, I don't know, like a simple idea, because I don't want like to annoy people, but at the same time, I think having chickens is a responsibility. You want people to understand that there's certain.
A lot of people feel like they can do whatever they want with their land. And as the planning commission, I think you really know that you can't.
No, well, you can't
can't
agree until it infringes.
As long as, yeah, like there are laws and stuff that regulate it. It's just like saying free speech. Can I say anything? No, I can't say anything. I can say a lot of things, but I can't say anything. And so it's the same concept. And so my point is that I guess that, you have, people that want chickens and they feel like their freedom is being taken away. They'll get incredibly emotional about it. And it's over a chicken. And the reality is, in the end, it partly boils down to being good neighbors and being able to communicate with each other, because the reality is you're never going to be the 100% best neighbor no matter who you are. And so you have to have some of those conversations with each other to help each other be better neighbors. And hopefully, I don't know, it's a tough thing, but it's an emotional thing. So I guess I'm personally not ready to like die on my sword over a chicken thing right now. So.
Well, what if we just make a recommendation and send it, and they shoot it down, and we just say like, chicken ordinance is done.
I think what Darren's saying is that, I mean, we've kind of already heard from the city council on this issue. It's time to kind of write the regulations and then officially have the planning commission say, yes, yay or nay, send this up. So I think we're at the point where we need to write the ordinance and put in there what needs to be in there. We just kind of need to know the details. What numbers are you good with? I mean, they can still deny the whole thing, right?
I like this May 8th version, I guess, just take out the 1.5 thing, because it does say, it does say no chicken shall be allowed in a single lot less than 10,000, and number .1 says a combined total of 8 laying hens shall be allowed on a lot with 10,000 square feet, and 1 additional for every 1,000 after that, so it's 8 on a 10,000 square foot lot. And
So
then,
just make that the number.
and then it's 1,000 after. That's what this version says, and you just take out the 1.5 laying, whatever mathematics.
So does it limit it to 10 or no? It's just 8?
It says 8 total on a 10,000 square foot lot, and then 1 more for every 1,000 square feet after that. So you can have.
So a 12,000 foot lot, you could have 12.
Yes.
No,
No, 10.
10, yeah.
Yes, 10.
Yeah.
20,000 square foot lot, you can have 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what this one says, and just take out the 1.5 culling, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
I like no roosters.
I think that's universal across. In fact, that news article
Like,
was very specific on that. No.
Except in Kingsville.
I think even most of the chicken guys would agree.
No, and that's what it says, so I like this version minus that, I'm for a permit, if you can do it without a fee, and it's just a one-time, it's more just someone's acknowledging that they know what they're doing, and not like, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, because that's what people do, right, is, I was unaware of that, but if they sign your name that they're aware of it, you put it in a file, and it's there, and if a neighbor calls, and those, and just simplify it. So I don't know if that would be a ton of work.
I just look at it from this standpoint. The city has the right to cover its costs.
Yes.
Do business. If you send one person out to look at one
Yeah.
complaint, you have spent $50.
Yeah.
Just one visit to somebody's property, you spent $50
Minimum.
minimum. And so to have something that is similar to a home-based business as far as a fee, that seems really minimal to me. I'm gonna mess around with $5 or $10.
But they won't make
Make it
$50 on
50.
chicken eggs and.
I mean, it needs to be something they think about.
Well, it's for personal use, right?
If it's free, there's no incentive to even come in and do it.
I mean, technically, you're supposed to register your dogs, right?
Yeah.
There's a fee for that with the county, so. I'd be interested to know how many people actually do that. Yeah.
I thought everyone did. I was often surprised.
Well, you get a ticket if you don't.
But again, there's kind of a thing for it.
Yeah, I'm with Heidi. I think we just need to, we're close enough to make a decision. Let's just do it and go.
A third.
Yeah.
So Justin, are we close enough? We can just,
Yeah, so what do we want? So I think we agree on 10,000 square foot minimum. I can support the 8 at 10,000 square feet and 1 additional per 1,000 square foot to the lot size.
All the other verbiage in this is just, it's pretty standard, like you can't let them roam around.
I know there was some discussion about, at one point it was like you had to use new.
None of that is in this, all of that's out, like I said, all that's out, all the buried wire stuff is out, all of it. It's just like keep them contained, keep roads out. It's, they sent like that was the latest version and it seems reasonable, and then on this it says it's a report of the property area, it says no chickens allowed rental properties.
I would agree.
Probably, I would think someone renting your home would want chickens at a rental property, right?
I hadn't thought about that one, but that does sound like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
In like red, it says down here, like at the bottom, that
Oh, that must have been added.
It seems like that would be taken care of in a rental agreement.
you would think, I don't know.
If it's a person living upstairs and renting their downstairs,
The-
it seems like it wouldn't clarify
Yeah.
that, so I don't
That's
know.
true.
But
You better just leave it out when the renters in charge.
I would leave it in. Look at the apartments over by us.
Fair.
He probably would never thought of putting that in the rental
Okay.
agreement.
All right.
Because it wasn't possible. I'd leave
So I guess
it.
it comes down to conditional use. Do we want to send that up to city council with verbiage in there about a conditional use? If so. is
And they figure out a price or no price, and we just bypass that?
So I would
What were you gonna say?
recommend to the planning commission to, have me put this ordinance together with the changes that you've asked and make sure everything is current. I want to bring a clean ordinance to the planning commission for their approval of the city council. I don't want to take something to city council that the planning commission's not even sure of, or want the council to fix this part and then send it back to us, or fix this. I want to put the clean version from the planning commission, and then if there's changes at that time, that will be up to the city council.
And for the most
But the
part,
recommendation coming from the planning commission is a clean version of the chicken.
I think Darren's right. We need to be a little more decisive.
I like this May, whatever, fifth, eighth, whatever version it is, minus the 1.5 thing.
Will you send that back to me just to make sure I have that one? I think I do.
For the most part, the city council will modify if they feel strongly about something. So don't feel nervous about hard coding in whatever you decide. That doesn't lock us into batting back and forth with each other. We can modify it if we feel strongly.
But that one's like the cleaned up.
I think that was the last one I sent.
That everybody felt better about, minus the 1.5. But I think we're all in
Have that.
agreement.
A hard number of chickens, right?
Yeah,
Just
so
not-
if you're taking the
not
1.5 out, it's just the 8.
Yeah. Just the 8 and the 1 additional 4,000 square feet. I guess that the question would just be conditional use. Do we want that, do we want to ask, staff to include that or not? Does anybody
I
have
would say include it.
I will include it in the one that I sent to you. If at that point in your next meeting, you say, yeah, we've gone through this, we've had enough discussion, we do not want that, we line that out, I will take it out and we'll set it up. How the
I think it's good. Yeah, I'm kind of with Heidi. It's nice to have people come in. Yeah, I'm not
Could you put a
gonna.
time frame, a cost on that, just for us? Just, this is city suggestion.
Yep.
When you bring it back.
Okay, we'll-
One other item, and this throws a wrench into things, but it's gotta be discussed. And we've talked about it before, but you're aware that the R112 zone doesn't allow animal keeping. And you've got plenty of people living in homes in that zone that says, we bought this home in this subdivision in this zone because we don't want animals, we don't want our neighbors to have animals. Is a chicken an animal, and are we going to make an exception in that zone for which there currently are no exceptions? So this would, you can do it, you can do that. I'm just saying that will probably raise a ruckus with some people in the. they'll say,
I thought R112 was allowed.
no.
RS12. Is there-
RS12 is allowed, R1, those are the different, that's the only difference between those two zones.
Is one allows
R112 does not allow animals.
But that's another reason I think the conditional use permit, because it doesn't allow all other sorts of animals, but I do think people are,
So is there an opinion about that zone? Are we going to pierce that zone and allow animals to go into that zone?
not animals, chickens are, I think, different than a. They're an animal, but it's not all the other.
I think,
Yeah.
It's a bit different than a horse.
I think what we're saying is yes. Anything 10,000 square feet or above.
So we just will just say this goes in
Only
any zone.
chickens, nothing else. No, nothing else.
Yeah, and I think,
I'm fine with that.
I think that's important to know, because I think there was one that talked about like fowl and.
Yeah, the guinea hens and
And I think
turkeys
it's
is,
just chickens, we're not talking about Cornish or whatever, right, it's chickens. Yeah. Okay,
We just will remove the R112 then, right?
Because that's gonna make it, well, no, because you still can't have horses.
You're saying we won't allow this in R112, right?
Yeah.
So do we
Well,
need
it's
to
allowed
amend
by
R112 as we do this?
We would have to.
Are
We'd have to amend the zone to say that chickens are allowed.
in R110.
Does
Or
R1,
R110.
does R112 specifically ban chickens?
No.
Just animals.
It says animals.
well, because, is it though, because you have the RS12?
yeah, you have the RS12 that allows it.
Yeah.
And the R112 has all same rules, but no animals.
So we would be
I mean,
allowing.
and we can say, here's the zones that allow it. We can put RS12, we can put agricultural, we can put R110.
Yeah, so you
We
could.
can leave that zone out for that reason.
So I guess the question is, is it based on zone and square footage, or is it just based on square footage?
I'm just saying R112 is currently an exception to animal keeping.
Yeah, well,
Is our chickens,
or is
Our
RS
dogs, our dogs not allowed in our,
no, that's not considered, it
Farm
is, it's
animal.
farm animals.
I think RS 12 are the exception, because they're the only ones that are allowed to have farm animals, correct?
RS 12 and agricultural. right?
Sure, but every other zone is not allowed to.
Yeah, you're right, currently, as it presently sits, yes, that's right.
So then what we're saying is that we would modify to allow chickens in R110 and R112.
Yes.
I think that's what we're saying.
Or you can leave the R112 out.
No, well, I don't.
so basically you're just classifying a chicken like you're classifying a dog.
Yes.
Just getting more.
Whatever you're calling it, a pet.
It's a pet.
Jeff, let me ask you, this is a real oddball question, but could we ignore the chicken ordinance and just change R112 and R110?
But then you've got to have.
To allow chickens? Yes.
Is that easier or harder?
You could do that, but you don't have any regulations, so, I mean, you just be based on whatever regulations are in place now.
So it's probably better to have all of
It probably is, it's probably better to have the rules you're talking about.
it. Okay.
But I just wanted to clarify that your intent is to say, we're gonna allow this in R110 and R112.
Well, that means there's probably even more.
And we may have to modify R112 slightly to say, no animals, chickens are okay.
See, chicken ordinance rule, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever the ordinance number will be.
Now, there could be some pushback on that, I don't know. There could be,
Don't you think there's a lot of people in our 112 that have chickens currently?
well, they're not supposed to.
But they probably do.
I would say.
There's probably plenty of people that have chickens somewhere.
I think it's great if people want to be self-sufficient and have a garden. I don't, but I think COVID changed a lot of people's opinions, and it's great if you want to grow your own eggs, you just have to follow rules. So, I don't know. I don't want a chicken. I don't want my neighbor to have a chicken, but.
Now, we also could run into this issue with the R112. In fact, it's likely, but it's not really a city issue. I know there are CC&Rs written in some of these subdivisions that do not allow animals.
Yeah.
We don't enforce those CC&Rs,
Yeah.
but you could have a neighbor, an HOA, sue a neighbor and say, you can't have chickens, you live in this subdivision, you agreed to these CC&Rs.
But that's another layer of
Yeah.
trouble, you know,
Yeah.
the city's
That's
gonna
not
regulate.
that's not our problem, but it
Yes.
could become a problem with people that want the chicken.
Yeah, but if your HOA, that's just another level on top, and you already.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's,
Yeah, you gotta.
That's even, not just the HOA.
someone could go fight your
There's-
HOA if they want that changed.
There's covenants on subdivisions. Protective covenants on subdivisions, and it's a little harder to take those to court, but it can be done.
But most probably don't say anything, HOAs probably do, like, I think my HOA says something about it, and so.
HOAs are a little more active in making sure that
there are laws
happens.
around it.
Be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the, just looking at the map, most of the R112s, I would assume, have HOAs in the city.
Yeah. So it might not affect some people, they might not be able to help in any ways, but that's,
The R110s, probably, you'll have more
And-
people with chickens.
You know, if something goes haywire, it doesn't mean that it can't be addressed, down the road again. You could modify. If people go nuts.
Jeff, do we need something in the ordinance or in where you sign up that says, I am aware that if there are protective covenants that restrict this, the city ordinance does not take precedence over those covenants.
I think it's probably better to say that,
Look at your,
check your
yeah,
HOA.
yes,
Whatever.
the city will not enforce covenants and restrictions. Make sure that you check your,
Yeah.
whatever covenants you have in your subdivision.
I think it's a good idea to include that,
Because
yeah.
I don't think we should try and cause problems for more people to fight about things.
right?
I mean, it's kind of to your point, Gary.
Right.
I just think that there are going to be some conflicts with this R112 thing in chickens. I can just see it coming.
We don't need, do we need to make recommendations or do you
Nope,
know?
I got it.
what-
Almost right here.
Okay.
I'll be bringing
Put that
back.
together and then we'll see.
Yep, I'll get that put together and send it out to the planning.
Everyone good for moving on from chickens?
Yes.
Okay, we will move on to 5.3 areas for R16 zone. So I'll give my thoughts on, so we recently created an R16 zone. The discussion then was, are there areas within the city that we would consider rezoning to R16 and updating the general plan to reflect that?
So my question on that is when we go to the general plan, how do we determine, I mean, we have things that are really dense, then we have things that are like the R3 that can go have a large range, and then we're talking about 1/6. Do we need a color on here or a zone that says, this section here would fall into R16?
Well, there are one sixes not on the current master plan, so the idea, right, is that we're finding areas, proposing a change to that, and there would be a color for
Yeah, it's
R16.
very good.
Yeah.
Future development,
Yeah.
right, so people know that area is identified as that, and we can take it to the state and say, look, we're trying. Because we can't control whether people sell the land.
And if you actually put it in your master plan, you're basically saying we would be favorable to a rezone to this
Yes,
designation. So you're saying more than, I mean, you haven't done it, but you're saying we would be favorable to that.
As we talked, that kind of that R16 is kind of a transitional zone, within the city. Theoretically, that's what it would be,
Yeah, we'd have to delineate that is,
kind of the purpose for it.
yes.
Right.
R16, R18 probably would fall in that too.
so
I've highlighted some things on the map, I'm happy to review, but really it's just typically those A1, sections currently, the agricultural land, that's left, right, well, so I'll just get up and show you on the map. This is right on the northeast, so this is Mount Road. Northeast section of the city, right, just that open land, I think there's talk about potential development there at some point. But again, we're talking transitional, it's right there, right, this is where we were talking. Here, these lots here recently. So it's close to there, it's right off Mountain Road, the main corridor. That was one, I think, right here is where,
Manning Orchard. Is that?
yeah, correct, Manning Orchard right there. Here's the church, so right, again, the apple orchard here, Witcher's Orchard. On the other side, you've got church here and a single piece of property that basically is wide as this street here. Developed, you've got this almost city block. Same thing, it's all green space currently. And I know we mentioned, we got all this land just down the street here, a lot of it's just kind of behind and off Mountain Road. And then kind of over here by the golf course, across from the park, we've got a couple lots that are quite large that I think this would be developments.
See, I would, some people really take offense to this, but I would consider the ball diamond across the street.
Just sits there.
It just, yeah, well, it gets used here and there, but not much. Now that we've got Nichols Park.
No, it is.
And the church is probably not ready to sell it, but if the day comes,
They own that ballpark?
yep, the church owns that.
Not this, you're saying over by Nichols, the church owns it.
No, the one right
This
here.
is right
Oh, I
here.
thought you were talking about the ballpark. This?
No, that's-
No, that's
that's-
used all the time.
But someday the church is gonna say, we're gonna do something with it. But they could. And it's like we laid out the entire golf course and said, well, we could put a whole development in there. We probably ought to do that with this land too.
I don't think it hurts.
And it shows that, hey, we're open to it.
I think in areas. I think areas like where it's just land in between lots, you have to follow that same zoning. Like here, I don't think you can, I mean, it just makes more sense to follow, but over here, like where there's some smaller, so where I'm thinking, where are
That's
those?
the Manning Orchard.
That's bad.
Oh, where are the ones?
You're talking about
Farther
the
left.
apartments?
Duplexes.
Farther left.
Right
It's
there,
that
acres
blue.
away.
Yeah.
It's that blue.
It's the blue right there next to you.
Right there, that's the street.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just,
So like you would have, I mean, I don't know if I could all that R six to do, I'm thinking like kind of down by the freeway, because you have more of the R 16 and then. Homes on here.
So I-
This lot across from this house getting done, that's a perfect area to just lot, R 16 there's nothing on it, but it'd be a great. I mean, these people, I know they would love big red trees and all. Like, again, we see R 16 we're talking about like a 500,000 town, we're not talking about
Yeah.
some. I mean, probably 7 million.
Yeah.
Well, they're not gonna be, not killing these property values, but I think this needs to be not just all R 16 and Orchard, I would say enough kind of transitional buffer on this, right? And maybe down at the freeway R 16, this lot R 16, I think over here, north of the church, there really is like, I mean, these might be harder, these ones, but all of this is owned by, I mean, it's just, I would say all of R 16. It's a great area, you're not really surrounded by any large homes that are gonna be really upset by that zoning. Do you agree with that?
well, so-
Behind.
I think there are people.
Your point right now, that's just right here, right?
Yes.
That's
so
the
it's
Palmer-
the church.
Palmer's and that,
Yeah. So it's acres bigger, and then even next to it is a small home with a huge lawn. So that potentially would be a great area, and I don't know if any home history. I mean, I think people always fight it, but I think that's a great area to have. R 16 or right there over in this area. These, I don't see, if they ever got subdivided, I feel like it's more natural to keep with like an R 18, is that what those are? Or these are.
The blue, I think, is R 10.
Blue's 10.
But these are R 12, correct?
R 12 is blue, light blue.
Light blue.
What's yellow?
Yellow is RS 12.
RS 12.
I should have this memorized. I don't love, like, I think, I wouldn't love something like R 16 in the middle of our, like, I think you have to, that's not making a transition. And have to go with that zoning, but then areas. Do you agree with that, or, like, yours is? I don't think you can like spot zone in the middle of all these neighborhoods. It seems more natural that this would be. Kind of that chunk and this chunk is where I thought of. And then you said where all the trailer park is, it's all zone commercial.
It is.
So that would be its highest investment skill. That would to go to the future, correct?
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I agree with Heidi. I think the Manning Orchard, part of it ought to be R 16.
Down by the highway area.
But it is, And even on the apartment side, there's some big houses. If you drive down in that cul-de-sac, there's big houses down there. And that will isolate them all by themselves. If all of Manning were to go R16, that would really isolate those houses and probably devalue them. But I like what someone mentioned in the public hearing is if we have these higher densities scattered in different areas around the city, it's easier for us as a community to absorb them and integrate ourselves with them rather than have just
A big section of them.
yeah, a big section a big block section that becomes integrate them so they feel more like us, even though maybe they don't have as much money as their neighbor. I think we can.
$700,000 townhome is a lot of money.
Yes.
That's not cheap. You gotta have a good job to buy that thing.
What is the idea behind?
Yes, the idea is the state has given every city, like, you have to do A, B, C, D, and if you're like, we can't do all of them, we can do like a few. The idea is to say we're trying to make more affordable housing. I'm not saying 400,000 be considered affordable housing, that's not gonna happen. So, like, you're not gonna build anything.
You can't buy a lot for that.
I mean, so there's areas, it came about, this we just rezoned an area to R16, and we didn't want to keep saying, like, spot zoning things, so create areas in our master plan that would be great for R16.
I think that way the neighborhoods can plan for it and not just individually come before planning commission and say, I'd like to rezone this lot to R16.
The other area is, I know the mayor wanted a gas station there, again, we did it down where that nursery is, that whole front part is pretty flat and it's decent R16.
So that bottom part right
The
there.
bottom where
It's
it's
got a fault lines.
slow, it has fault lines on the bottom,
Yeah,
so it can't be any,
Yeah, right there.
it can't be any residential.
Right where those greenhouses.
Can you engineer around fault lines or they just?
It can't have any.
You can't build a house valley over a fault.
I don't know.
You can put a gas station.
You
They've
can
only
you can get close to it, but you can't be on.
They've only recently discovered it
Usually there's recommendations about setbacks.
because they only discovered it like a year ago.
So it could be 10 setback, it could be 100.
Do the geologic survey.
Or.
So that's
So
why,
it's just saying to you, it's.
So I gotta come over to the map and ask.
well, it's already actually got a development sort of started there.
So
But that, it's like,
this.
no, it's
going
all
up to the new
tied
development
in with
up
that
here,
whole thing.
This individual up here that has the house. And I was talking to him casually and he just said,
They're
he's
gonna
got two
wind the
lots
road
next door that have
partway
fault
in
lines.
there.
Yes.
But they'll tear out that
Oh,
one
my
house.
green is the one they.
According to the plan that they've sent,
Is that totally off?
but it's
I think
been
so.
stalled because they don't
I think
have
that's off the
the
table.
right of way to connect up above into that subdivision that is
So that's a green.
currently still being,
No.
I've had discussions with them and showed them the fault lines.
The fault lines are right in the middle of the lot,
wind it.
so it's just not.
They wind it.
gonna work.
it won't be too steep.
But make the
They'll wind
change.
it.
Yes.
They'll,
Another question I
I
had.
can't say what they will or
We
won't do.
come to,
I know that their plan was to already put a road in and put a development in below,
the city land.
about 25 to 30.
Where the water.
28, I
back
think.
here,
Yes.
we've got a city land. And I know the city wants to keep that.
You're talking about the Terrace Drive,
And we want
but
them to-
whatever it turns into up above, it's called, Rock Loft Ridge Estates. It's called North Rock Loft Ridge Road. But they don't have, you notice how if you look at the map, you notice how it ends before the. So in other words, they don't have a right to go from here to there. That's why they
like in terms of that, and what we got was
But you
They
really
need to-
want access where you're gonna have-
Okay.
well, didn't get any,
Yes.
absolutely
Well,
not.
depending on how deep it is.
I think that's something we ought to think about. The other question I had is on Green Road here on the other side of the
That's what they're
highway.
working on. That's probably why it's not
This little
going.
triangle here, whatever.
It's installed.
So that is a public utility easement.
Um,
But
I know that's kind of-
That's where the road used to run.
I suspect.
And when
That's
we brought it down to the four-way stop,
going.
there's still sewer lines and stuff that run through that.
They've already, they already have a lot of this kind of planned out. This they have planned out, but they don't have his
So I just had a question.
agreement yet, or,
And you're pretty much in agreement with the ones that were pointed out.
Yeah, I just think, over here on
true,
the Mansion property, I think it would be good to have a
they
kind of
could
a
expedite
perimeter
it
maybe,
pretty easily,
where
because
there's
actually,
almost six,
if you walk,
maybe right away to
so
our
it's steep right here, but it's
or
not
almost,
steep right here.
But I would transition it in between the large homes down here and some.
And our roads there.
And I happen to live over there,
Right in here
but it would be
is
better
where
to do
they,
that.
the nursery is. It's somewhere in there. I can't tell you. I don't know exactly.
Just a comment about what Clark said.
It's a basic idea.
I like, Clark, I like your, I thought about dispersing things around the community. There's a lot of wisdom in that. The one thing that I think is troublesome is just to have this open door policy. Let's say you lived on a piece of property for 30 years, and this idea, and your neighbors live next to you. This idea that your neighbor can sell his property and tear down his house and build a bunch of homes on it, that is a harsh reality for somebody that's lived there their whole life, or a good part of their life. That's why I like this idea of identifying on the map areas, because what that allows you to do is vet those. If somebody has real heartburn about it, they can state that, and you can say, well, maybe we should look at something else. If they, on the other hand, say, I'm okay with that, then that's probably okay. I just think that there needs to be deference to people that have lived on their property, and it's the largest investment they're gonna make in their life. They have a right to the quiet enjoyment of their property. In fact, I think they have a bigger right than their neighbor does to change the way he's been living, or sell his property and move away and do something different with it.
Yeah.
I think that guy that's still there and has an expectation, I think that has to be considered.
I think so too. One of the things that worries me when you've seen this is people buy a home and they trash it for a couple of years and then say, oh, it needs to be replaced. I know that's happened in other cities, and then they get a lot more favorable, oh yeah, we got to get rid of this house and we can do something different there. I don't know how you prevent that. But other than just really slap down on enforcement, I know that that's happened around in different cities. People buy a property, let it go into disrepair, and then say, oh, it's time to do redevelopment.
In ours, it's happened.
So what's, like, we identified some areas, so we put it on that.
So I will, I'll work on all the areas. I will mark up and then I'll send it out to the planning commission. If that's.
We may make a couple of other recommendations,
That's great.
and then I think we just kind of vet those. You would definitely want to have a lot of public input on this.
But is this something that goes to city council or this is just a strictly planning?
So there's other,
It's
this
both.
both, yeah.
It's both.
But before it went to kind of a public open house, the city council would recommend.
Yeah, we would definitely want the city council
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
board with,
I'd
What
like,
that is?
yeah, I'd like to get both bodies on board with the areas that are identified before you go to the public. And then you take the public comment, and you might adjust things further. I just like to use this term, I think in our circumstances, I like to use the term more affordable. Because I think it's the best that we can hope for. We cannot, as you mentioned, we cannot get to what the state considers affordable housing. The land's just too valuable. The lots are worth more than 400,000. And so this idea of more affordable is a term that I think that we try and say, when we talk about it, this isn't a $1.5 million home, it's a $750,000 home.
What do they determine? Is there an AMI percentage?
It's what's considered affordable
Based on-
is 80% of the county median home price. The county median home price, not through Heights City's median home price. And the median home price right now is just over 500,000, 511,000. So that
So
makes it.
80% of that.
Yeah,
It's like 400 and,
$408,000. So you would have to build a home that sells for $410,000 to be considered by the state of Utah as an affordable housing unit. Well, that's not gonna happen here. It's just not gonna happen. Those R16 deals that we approved, they're not gonna be $400,000 homes. They're gonna be $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 homes.
so Jeff, it doesn't even seem like almost anywhere in the county you could build
No,
a house for that.
that's a true statement.
And that's really, I mean, I think you could buy a used house maybe for the median thing, but I don't think you can buy land anywhere because I've gone different places and the neighbors will show me the house next door and the houses that are going in, they'll be like, those are selling like quick for $750,000. And it's places that I'm like,
Yeah.
I really wouldn't have guessed that. And they tell me that they paid $50,000 for their house
Yeah,
25 years ago.
have a realtor pull up the number of homes in this county that are for sale for less than $400,000. You can probably count them on one hand. There may not be any. So you're right. It is an unrealistic expectation given our current state of valuations.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to be
I'm sorry.
looking like that's gonna change anytime soon. So
Prices may settle a little bit.
this is not a Fruit Heights problem. This is the whole Wasatch Front.
The legislature just likes to look like they're making a valiant effort to.
Well, it's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to use this term, more affordable.
I like that, Jeff.
More affordable.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do something, we're doing something to help the situation, but we're not.
And you do, like, as a city, you want younger family, right? Like, you're not,
Well, yeah,
you want
and
everybody, you want more diversity, you want more, like, accounts.
And keep in mind, I mean, somebody that can afford a $750,000 home, they're gonna run down the neighborhood.
Yeah, they're not going to.
I don't think they're gonna run down anything. Those are people that have gotta have good jobs.
No, they're
To even afford that.
great families, they're great people, like.
I mean, that's somebody's paying $5,000 a month, house payment.
Yeah.
That
is not cheap.
No. So, I don't know, that's just some kind of food for thought.
And I think that's good, like, as you go out in the public for them to understand, people think R16 and they're like, word, destroying our city, but in today's age, like that, I mean, like the Palmer property, it would be awesome there, like it really would.
The one thing that I think is that I'm not sure that we as a planning commission or a city council can make our city more affordable for our kids or for people. I mean, we can't control when somebody sells their house, that we can't. I mean, and from my experience, even if it's higher density, the house prices they don't seem like they're affordable. I mean,
But it's more affordable than 1.5 million.
I couldn't afford to remove back into my own house. And I think there's a
No.
lot of people
I'm the
that fit
same
that
way.
description.
I'm in that same boat.
So,
There's no way I could afford my house. I can't afford the property tax on my house. You're talking about lot prices. You know, we have a spare lot. We were shocked this year, the county, the tax valuation on that is $400,000
On that vacant lot.
on the vacant lot, so
Is
you,
that half acre?
no, it's not that big. No, it's,
Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah.
So at this point is, just future discussion, we'll drop a map, and we'll continue. to
You're
discuss.
gonna drop,
Yes,
right?
I will.
He's like
Yeah,
putting
together.
it on,
I wrote down every place that you guys mentioned.
And Darren, I want to get together with you and just kind of further refine that.
and I think it's incredibly important to spread it out because
Agreed,
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
agreed.
and never mind. I could go on a long time. Never mind. We'll just drop it.
oh, can I ask one more question? I'm sorry, I don't want to relay things. So this property on Mountain Road, some of those are long, skinny lots. If the one in the middle, the second skinny lot going to the south, if they wanted to develop right now, how could they develop and put something behind there? We don't have the
They
ordinance.
would have to pump sewer and those kind of things to get it out if the property's wide enough.
Can we do a flag lot now?
No.
No.
And I'll tell you, Clark, just real quick. The thought process behind that is that instead of trying to take these little skinny lots and stuff homes on them and deal with all the utilities and all of that, our hope is that this would encourage people to take 3 or 4 skinny lots, put them together and stick a city street back in there on a cul-de-sac and actually build, you know, sort of a real development and not just some squirrely something. Actually plan and put something together that you could put 4 or 5 homes on.
Because you could put a lot of homes if you had all of that property there.
Yes, you could. And so instead of trying to mealy mouse it along, think globally and responsibly. You might have to get together with some of your neighbors and sell out.
Well, just so you know, a lot of the restriction on Mountain Road and those long skinny lots is because the topography behind it.
Yes, that's
Different steep
another.
ups,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
another good-
Yeah,
All
it's
the
like-
east, all the east side stuff,
And
you
it's-
can't really stuff.
And it's a lot of where it's
Right?
been sliding, so nobody's gonna wanna build a
Yeah.
house right.
It's all done, really.
Yeah, all that
There are
east side
restrictions.
stuff is.
There just is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not accessible. And the green up there has restrictions on it, the dark green.
Yeah,
The bottom line is that there's nothing left to develop that isn't challenged.
I mean, that stuff north of the church is pretty. Flat and open, right? It's just trees and flat.
I was just saying, I think I'm ready to give some opinion. I think that I would prefer to see people combine lots and
take out existing structure and put in more dense housing, rather than
Yeah.
potentially sacrificing nice open space.
I don't think we're talking about any green space,
Like
like,
these orchard lots and things, right?
well, anything on the east side, east of Mountain Road, I don't think you can do much with any of those because of the slope, right?
Well, in the Manning Orchard, you could do a lot there.
But that's on the
There's some
west of the
areas,
Mountain
there's some
Road.
areas you could, you're gonna have to get close.
East side Mountain Road is a lot tougher.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, east side of Mountain Road, that stuff's
We-
just gonna be, someone's gonna tear down an old house, it's right, what's happening now. But that west side Manning Orchard.
Yeah, you could do some stuff there, but I think along with that, you still require open space.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I think
For
so,
sure.
I think so, it's like, more along the.
I'm just saying in general, as a theoretical idea, if you give these on these big, large, nice open spaces, it becomes more, people who own those would probably be more tempted to sell them, and the potential for redevelopment could occur, right? Because you get more money. Right, for this nice open space in this desired community, right? Whereas if you rezone, existing parcels maybe along a transit corridor where people have to combine parcels and, take out existing infrastructure, right? And rebuild on.
Well, that's what it'd be like the Palmer property, you'd have to buy 3 or 4 homes in order to do something there.
But I'm not necessarily against gentle density, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's $700,000 town. Right, but in my opinion, I think conserving open space is more important
Yeah.
than, making sense, right?
Yes,
You are.
I think you need.
And we have that in areas
Just
too.
hiding from it.
And Shelley, that's well said,
Right.
because the governor's idea of packing a bunch more people on the Wasatch Front is in direct conflict with open space.
Right, and it takes.
And open space has value, right?
Open space is.
It has value.
Is key to, healthy welfare, right?
Yeah.
Of a community, and so I think these orchards and this open space is way more valuable, just kind of as is, and rezoning along some of these existing transit corridors or whatever, right? Seems more appropriate to infill with density than saying, we're just gonna offer it up. It probably will never happen, but then it does happen, and then my open space is never retained, right?
It needs to be taken into consideration.
If you did that, it would reduce, I think, the potential for higher density to actually be put in. Right?
Yeah,
If
yes.
you just open,
Yes.
if you general plan these open spaces, they would incentivize the current owners to sell out. But if you mass general planned existing neighborhoods, having to pick off one house at a time would be a lot harder.
There's not a lot of areas like that though, there's just not a lot of.
Well, I think,
So you're just saying that, just
like,
picking this off.
yeah, like, if you look at all, I don't remember, I'm not quite sure, but, you've got all these single family dwelling probably here, right? And if somebody were to say, purchase all of these plots right here and eventually pick them all up and combine that parcel, then maybe more dense housing makes sense over there, right? And we have to sacrifice these nice pockets of space.
One of the problems is those open spaces are somebody's private property. And they also may want to develop.
They
Yeah.
might, they might.
And I think, well, when we moved to Fruit Heights, there were orchards all over. And now we have two orchards and they're struggling. And
But you're opening the door to that development by saying, we're just gonna do this to meet the standard, right? But
Yeah.
There's a real threat if those people say, hey, great, I don't have to go, there's inherent value in zoning.
Shelley, that's a really
So,
good point, because oh my goodness, we could put,
because you could spend $1 million trying to get a parcel rezoned and the process as a real estate development, so just by saying, hey, guess what, we're gonna do it for free for you. There's inherent value in that process.
yeah.
You rezone a parcel and you put it for sale and, it's.
Yeah, we will be, we do that, we will give somebody potential to make a lot more money.
It just needs to be considered.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of what Shelley's presenting, but I like the idea. I think it would potentially preserve Fruit Heights to kind of what it is now, rather than having these additional. We're not, I think the purpose of this wasn't originally to say, we were fulfilling a request from the state, right? That's what we were trying to do.
Well, and avoiding public hearings every time someone wants to read it. So
Yes, that's true. That is in there.
Like,
But then you have control, not control, but you have the same process, right? So.
but that's why we figured if we pick areas that we think work. I mean, I don't ever see like the basic idea of Mountain Grove changing. Like even if the front of Manning Orchard, there's a few large lots off of it, so you maintain the same, you know, idea on the front. Yes, the street front is uninterrupted, it's still those lots, and then you have higher density back by 89.
And it's trans-oriented, you have bus lines that run down the idea of, we'll say low income housing section. But low income housing is that people who are lesser income, they move to these places. And essentially they need a bus line or mass transit to where they're going. Right? So you orient the dense housing on these arterial pathways so that people can do that, and then they have transit, they make where they need to go. And that street front that is maintained, right? Even
Yeah.
a little more dense,
Yeah.
I would fight to.
But I don't ever see those,
Maintain the
that
open space.
main area changing, that main idea, like currently tons of houses are being built in.
I'm
They're
guessing,
building-
I'm guessing if they can afford a $750,000 condo, they probably have
They're
a
gonna
car.
have a park.
I'm just guessing.
So, right, but the idea behind low income housing is that it's not just.
More affordable housing.
More affordable.
We have zero low income housing.
I'd
We do.
But it has
recommend,
other components.
Other than
to
the,
it,
maybe the
right?
trailer park.
Maybe the trade.
We try the park.
I'd recommend, Shelley, pull out the general plan and look what has been identified in the city as permanent open space and what has been identified for potential open space. And then just kind of compare that to your thoughts and see what you think then, because there are some fairly large areas in the city that are permanent open space, you know, Beverly Hill. and
There's nothing we can do to change it.
You need to familiarize yourself with those things and then just kind of compare that with your thought process and see, okay, do we want more than that? Do we want less than that? So there's been a lot of discussion about that. Years ago, there was talk about saving that whole bench up there. And, you know, it was just kind of like a ode to the orchards of Fruit Heights, but it's private property, as Clark mentioned, and somebody has to buy that and then say, I'm not gonna do anything with it. And that's hard. That's just, it's just hard. It's expensive. Draper just bought $25 million worth of open space. And I'm thinking, how do you do that? How do you afford that?
They have a bigger tax base than we do.
Well,
Yeah.
because they just got all that through, not through open space, but now they have that on the mountain open space.
And it is beautiful.
It was probably I don't know, it was probably a condition of giving that. I don't know anything about that development, but they probably had to say, well, you want to do this, you have to use this. Okay.
Well, they said, that I read an article, said they put up $25 million.
Wow.
And that's combining with other funds from other sources to buy like $50 million worth of property. But they come up with $25 million. So, yeah. I don't think the city can afford that.
I know
So
that
just,
they can.
just for time, yeah, so we're almost at 9 o'clock at this point. My suggestion will be we just continue the discussion. And Darren, you can summarize, kind of what we talked about, and we can continue.
Or else put on that.
I think we had some real good discussion today, though. Thank you.
Are there any tabled items? Section 6, I don't think commissioner staff reports. Nothing. calendar, no upcoming events or meetings. Do we have a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.